The snow fell in thick, heavy sheets outside my basement window, each flake clinging to the glass like tiny, frozen tears. I sat on the edge of the narrow cot that had been my bed for the past 4 years, staring at those tears, feeling them mirror the ones I'd stopped shedding months ago. There were no more tears left in this old body, only emptiness. Only the hollow ache of a father who'd buried his son and lost his grandson in the same cruel year. The furnace hummed somewhere above me, but the warmth never quite reached down here to the basement. My daughter-in-law, Vanessa, said it was expensive to heat the whole house. Said I should be grateful she even let me stay after Marcus disappeared. After they found his car at the bottom of that ravine outside Kelowna. After the police declared him dead, though they never found his body. I pulled the thin blanket tighter around my shoulders. 63 years old, and I was living like a refugee in my own son's house. Well, Vanessa's house now. Everything had been transferred to her name within months of Marcus being declared legally dead. The house, the savings, his life insurance policy. $2 million, they said. I never knew my son was worth so much dead. Through the thin ceiling, I could hear footsteps. Vanessa's voice, sharp and commanding as always. Then another voice, deeper. Her brother, Vincent. I'd learned to recognize the sounds of their conversations, the way the floorboards creaked when they gathered in the kitchen directly above my room. They thought I couldn't hear, or maybe they didn't care. I pressed my ear against the cold ceiling. The old man's becoming a problem, Vincent said. His voice was muffled but clear enough. What do you want me to do? Vanessa replied. Throw him out? He's got nowhere to go. Besides, he's useful. Someone has to watch Tyler while I'm working. Tyler, my grandson. 7 years old now, and I barely saw him anymore. Vanessa had enrolled him in an expensive private school across town. Said it was better for his future. Said I was too old, too confused to help with his homework. I saw him for maybe an hour each evening, when Vanessa allowed me to give him dinner before his bedtime. You need to cut him off completely, Vincent continued. His pension goes straight to you, right? Every month. $1,300. I told him it was for room and board. He signed the papers without even reading them. My hands trembled. Not from the cold this time. And he doesn't know about the second policy? Vanessa laughed. It was a sound like breaking glass. How would he know? Marcus took it out privately, through my father's insurance company. $3 million, on top of the original $2 million. The old fool still thinks his son only had the one policy from his employer. The floor creaked as someone moved. I held my breath. Your father's done a good job hiding the trail, Vincent said. But we need to be careful. Marcus has been gone 4 years. If anyone starts asking questions, no one's asking questions. Who would? Marcus's father is senile, living in my basement. His friends think he moved away with grief. And Marcus, well, everyone thinks Marcus is dead. I stumbled backward, my leg hitting the cot. The metal frame screeched against the concrete floor. The voices above went silent. My heart hammered against my ribs. 73 years old, and my heart was pounding like I'd run a marathon. Marcus. They were talking about Marcus. And they were talking about him like he might not be dead. Footsteps thundered toward the basement door. I threw myself onto the cot, pulled the blanket up to my chin, and closed my eyes. Pretended to sleep. Pretended I was just a confused old man who couldn't hurt anyone. The door opened. Light spilled down the stairs. Dad? Vanessa's voice dripped with false concern. Are you awake? I didn't move, kept my breathing steady. In, out, in, out. She stood there for what felt like an eternity. Then the door closed, and I was alone in the darkness again. But I wasn't the same man I'd been 5 minutes ago. For 4 years, I'd believed my son was dead. For 4 years, I'd mourned him, missed him, felt the world collapse around me. I'd given up my apartment, my independence, my dignity, because I thought I had nothing left. Thought I should be grateful. Vanessa even gave me a roof over my head while I raised her son. But if what I'd just heard was true, if Marcus was alive, I waited until the house fell silent. Until I heard Vanessa's bedroom door close upstairs, heard Vincent's truck rumble out of the driveway. Then I sat up, my mind racing through possibilities. Where would I even start? I had no money of my own. Vanessa had convinced me to sign over my pension, said it made things easier, less complicated. I had $13 in my wallet, no car, no phone except the old flip phone Vanessa had given me, which barely worked, and she monitored anyway. I was trapped. The next morning, I woke to the sound of Tyler's school bus pulling away. Vanessa worked at a law firm downtown, didn't come home until 6 in the evening. That gave me hours. Hours to think, hours to plan. I climbed the stairs slowly, my knees protesting with each step. The house was immaculate, as always. Vanessa had hired a cleaning service, paid for with Marcus's insurance money. She said, I wasn't allowed to touch anything in the main rooms. My job was to stay in the basement, come up only to prepare Tyler's dinner, and return to my room. But today, I went to Marcus's old office. Vanessa had turned it into a storage room, filled with boxes of things she said she'd deal with later. I opened the first box. Old photographs. Marcus as a boy. Marcus graduating university. Marcus and Vanessa's wedding. Marcus holding baby Tyler in the hospital. My hands shook as I picked up the wedding photo. My son looked so happy, so full of life. How had this happened? How had I missed the signs? I searched through box after box, looking for anything, any clue. Then, at the bottom of the last box, I found it. A folder, tucked beneath old tax returns and forgotten bills. Inside were insurance documents. The first policy, the one I knew about. $2 million from Marcus's employer, paid out to Vanessa 18 months after he was declared dead. And beneath it, a second set of documents. A private policy, $3 million, taken out just 6 months before Marcus disappeared. The beneficiary, Vanessa Harper. The insurance company, Harper and Associates Insurance Limited. Harper, Vanessa's maiden name. Her father owned the insurance company. I photographed the documents with the ancient flip phone, my fingers clumsy on the tiny keys. The images were grainy, barely readable, but they were something. Evidence, proof. Then I heard it. A car door slamming outside. I looked out the window. A black Mercedes sedan sat in the driveway. Not Vanessa's car. Someone else. I shoved the folder back into the box, my heart racing. Footsteps on the porch. The doorbell. I stood frozen in Marcus's office, unsure what to do. The doorbell rang again. Then a knock. Then a voice. Grandpa, I know you're in there. It's Sophie. Sophie. Marcus's daughter from his first marriage. Tyler's half-sister. She'd been 12 when Marcus disappeared, living with her mother in Vancouver. I hadn't seen her in 4 years. Vanessa had forbidden contact, said it was too painful for Tyler, too confusing. But that voice, that wasn't a 12-year-old girl. I opened the door. Standing on the porch was a young woman, maybe 19 or 20, with Marcus's dark eyes and his determined jaw. She wore an expensive leather jacket, designer jeans, and carried herself with a confidence I'd never seen in the shy preteen I remembered. Grandpa, she said softly, we need to talk. Get in the car. I stared at her. At the Mercedes. At the designer clothes that must have cost more than my monthly pension. Sophie, where did you... I'll explain everything, she said. Her eyes darted to the street, nervous. But not here. Vanessa could come back any time. Please, Grandpa, trust me. Something in her voice, in her eyes, told me this was my only chance. I grabbed my jacket and followed her to the Mercedes. The interior was leather and new car smell. Sophie started the engine and pulled out of the driveway before I'd even buckled my seatbelt. Where are we going? I asked. Somewhere safe. Somewhere we can talk. She glanced at me, and I saw tears in her eyes. Grandpa, I'm so sorry. I should have come sooner, but I had to be sure. I had to have proof. Proof of what? She took a deep breath. That my dad is alive. The world tilted. I'd suspected. I'd hoped. But hearing it from Sophie's mouth made it real in a way that terrified me. Where is he? My voice came out as a whisper. I don't know exactly, but I know he's alive. And I know Vanessa and her family are behind his disappearance. She drove us to a Tim Hortons across town, far from Vanessa's neighborhood. We sat in a corner booth, 2 coffees between us, and Sophie opened her laptop. "I'm in my second year at UBC," she explained. "Business and forensic accounting. Last year, for a class project, I decided to analyze life insurance fraud cases. I was curious about Dad's case. It never made sense to me. Dad was a careful driver. The idea that he'd drive off a cliff on a road he'd driven 100 times. She pulled up a file. Police reports, accident scene photos, insurance claims. "Look at the timeline," she said, pointing to the screen. "Dad disappeared on March 15th, 4 years ago. His car was found 3 days later at the bottom of a ravine outside Kelowna. But look at this." She pulled up another document. Bank records. Dad's credit card was used at a gas station in Kamloops on March 16th, the day after he disappeared. The police dismissed it as fraud, someone who found his wallet. But look at the security footage. She played a grainy video. A man in a baseball cap and sunglasses, filling up a truck. The timestamp read, March 16, 11:47 a.m. That's Dad's height, Dad's build, Dad's walk. I leaned closer to the screen. The video quality was poor, but it could be anyone. That's what the police said. But there's more. She pulled up more records. Phone records showed Dad's cell phone pinged off towers, heading east from Kamloops toward Alberta for 3 days after his supposed death. Then it went dark. Why didn't the police investigate this? Sophie's face hardened. Because Vanessa's father has connections. Harper and Associates insures half the RCMP vehicles in BC. They make donations to police fundraisers. They have friends in high places. She paused. And because there was a body, what? They found remains. 6 months after Dad disappeared, hikers found human remains at the bottom of the ravine. Burned, mostly bone fragments. The DNA was too degraded for a definitive match, but it was close enough. Close enough that Vanessa could claim the insurance. I felt sick. Whose body was it? I don't know. But I don't think it was Dad. She closed the laptop. Grandpa, I've been investigating this for 18 months. I worked 3 jobs last year, saved every penny. That's how I bought the car, the clothes. I needed to look successful, established. I needed people to take me seriously. And what did you find? Vanessa's father, Thomas Harper, has a history. 3 other insurance fraud cases in the past 20 years. Nothing proven, but patterns. Disappearances, convenient deaths, large payouts. I found a connection to a man named Vincent Kozak, Vanessa's brother. Yes, Vincent has a record. Fraud, embezzlement, identity theft. He served 2 years in prison 10 years ago. After he got out, he went to work for Thomas Harper. She leaned forward. Grandpa, I think they've done this before. I think Dad isn't the first. My coffee had gone cold. I couldn't drink it anyway. My throat was too tight. Where do we even start? Sophie reached across the table and took my hand. We start by finding Dad. I've been tracking financial records, property transfers, anything that might give us a clue. Last month, I found something. She pulled out her phone and showed me a satellite image. A property in rural Alberta, near Jasper. Remote, isolated. This property was purchased 4 years ago, 2 months before Dad disappeared. The buyer? A numbered company. But when you dig into the ownership records, you find something interesting. Thomas Harper is a silent partner. You think Marcus is there? I think it's possible. I've driven by twice. There's someone living there. I couldn't get close enough to see who. But Grandpa, her voice broke. I saw smoke from the chimney. I saw someone chop wood. Someone who moved like Dad. Hope and fear warred in my chest. We need to call the police. With what evidence? Everything I have is circumstantial. Security footage that could be anyone. Financial records that show suspicious patterns, but no proof of a crime. The police already closed Dad's case. Vanessa's family has money, connections, lawyers. If we go to the police now, they'll bury us. Then what do we do? Sophie's eyes met mine, and I saw Marcus in them. Determined, stubborn, brave. We go there. We find out the truth. And then, when we have real evidence, we burn Vanessa's world to the ground. We spent the next week planning. Sophie rented us a cabin outside Calgary, paid for with money she'd saved from her jobs. I told Vanessa I needed to visit an old friend in the hospital, that I'd be gone for a few days. She barely looked up from her phone when I left. Sophie picked me up a block away from the house. The drive to Jasper took 6 hours. Sophie drove carefully, checking the mirrors constantly. She'd brought supplies, warm clothes, a camera with a telephoto lens, binoculars, and a voice recorder. If we find Dad, she explained, we need documentation, photos, his testimony on record, enough that the police can't ignore it. The property was exactly where the satellite images showed it. A small cabin set back from the road, surrounded by pine trees and snow. Smoke rose from the chimney. We parked a kilometer away and hiked through the woods. The snow was deep, and my old legs struggled. But Sophie was patient. She helped me over fallen logs, through drifts, until we reached a vantage point overlooking the cabin. Sophie set up the camera and binoculars. We waited. Hours passed. The sun moved across the sky. My fingers went numb despite the gloves. Sophie kept watch, tireless, focused. Then the cabin door opened. A man stepped out, carrying an axe. He was bearded, thinner than I remembered, his hair longer and grayer. But the way he moved, the way he tested the axe blade with his thumb before setting a log on the stump. "Dad," Sophie whispered, tears streaming down her face. "It's Dad." I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. My son, my boy, alive. Marcus chopped wood for 20 minutes. Then he went back inside the cabin. "We need to get closer," Sophie said. "We need to talk to him. What if it's a trap? What if someone's watching him? Then we'll deal with it." "But Grandpa, we can't leave without at least trying." We waited until dark. Then we approached the cabin, moving as quietly as we could through the snow. Sophie knocked on the door. Silence. Then footsteps. The door opened a crack. Marcus stood there, eyes wide with shock. He looked from Sophie to me, his mouth opening and closing without sound. "Dad," Sophie said. "It's us. We found you." Marcus glanced past us, into the darkness, then grabbed us both and pulled us inside, slamming the door. "What are you doing here?" His voice was hoarse, like he hadn't spoken to anyone in months. "You can't be here. It's not safe." "Dad, we know everything," Sophie said. "Vanessa, the insurance fraud, Thomas Harper. We know they faked your death." Marcus sank into a chair, his face in his hands. "You shouldn't have come. They'll kill you. They'll kill all of us." "Tell us what happened," I said, finding my voice at last. "Please, son, tell us the truth." And Marcus told us everything. How Vanessa had changed after Tyler was born. How she'd grown cold, distant, obsessed with money. How he'd discovered she was having an affair with a business partner of her father's. How he'd confronted her, threatened divorce. How she'd smiled and said he'd never divorce her, never leave her, because her father had a plan. Marcus had laughed, said he wasn't afraid of her or her father. 2 weeks later, Vincent had approached him in a parking lot, told him he had a choice. He could disappear, fake his death, and live in hiding with a new identity, or they would kill him for real and make it look like an accident. Either way, Vanessa would get the insurance money. "I didn't believe him," Marcus said. "I thought it was a bluff, so I went to the police." The police officer he spoke to, Thomas Harper's brother-in-law. Marcus realized then that he had no way out, no one to turn to. Vanessa's family had connections everywhere, so he'd run. They'd staged the accident, burned someone else's body, collected the insurance, and Marcus had been living in this cabin ever since, with a new name, a new identity, too terrified to leave, too ashamed to contact anyone he loved. "They told me if I ever tried to come back, they'd kill you," Marcus said, looking at me. "They'd kill Sophie. They'd make it look like accidents, just like they did with me. So I stayed here. I thought I was protecting you." Sophie was crying openly now. "Dad, we can fix this. We have evidence. We have your testimony. We can go to the police." "And what? Hope they believe us? Hope Thomas Harper doesn't have them in his pocket too?" Marcus shook his head. "I've been trying to gather evidence for 4 years. I've got nothing. Harper's too careful. Vincent's too smart. And Vanessa, he laughed bitterly. Vanessa's a lawyer. She knows exactly how to cover their tracks. Then we make them confess, I said. Both Marcus and Sophie looked at me. How? Marcus asked. I thought of the past 4 years. The basement room, the cold, the humiliation, the way Vanessa had stripped me of everything. My home, my dignity, my pension, my grandson. I go back, I said. I tell Vanessa I know everything, that I have proof. I wear a wire, record her confession. Grandpa, that's too dangerous, Sophie protested. What are they going to do? Kill me? I'm 73 years old. I've got maybe 10 good years left. But you two, I looked at Marcus, at Sophie. You've got your whole lives ahead of you. I won't let them take that away. We argued for hours, but in the end, they knew I was right. Sophie had contacts through her accounting courses. She knew someone who worked in criminal law. We reached out carefully, quietly, found a lawyer who specialized in fraud cases, who had no connection to Thomas Harper. The lawyer, a woman named Patricia Chen, listened to our story, looked at Sophie's evidence, looked at Marcus, alive and terrified. This is big, she said finally. If we can prove fraud on this scale, we're talking about criminal charges for everyone involved. Vanessa, her father, Vincent. But we need a confession. We need them on record admitting what they did. She gave me a wire, a tiny recording device that fit under my shirt. The moment they threaten you, the moment they admit to the fraud, we'll have them, Patricia said, but you have to be careful. These people have already killed once. They won't hesitate to do it again. I went back to Calgary, back to Vanessa's house, back to my basement room. Vanessa barely acknowledged my return. Have a nice visit with your friend? She asked, not looking up from her laptop. Yes, I said. Very enlightening. I waited 3 days, let her think everything was normal. Then, on Sunday morning, when Tyler was at a friend's house and Vanessa was alone in the kitchen, I confronted her. I know Marcus is alive. She froze, her coffee cup halfway to her lips. Then she set it down carefully, her face unreadable. Excuse me? I know about the insurance fraud. I know about your father's company. I know about Vincent. I know everything. Vanessa laughed. You're senile, old man. Marcus is dead. Then why did his credit card get used the day after he supposedly died? Why did his phone ping off towers for 3 days after the accident? Why is there a cabin in Alberta registered to one of your father's companies? Her face went pale. You have no proof, she said. I have enough. I pulled out my phone, showing her the photos of the insurance documents. And I have a lawyer. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to the police. I'm going to tell them everything. And I'm going to make sure you and your father spend the rest of your lives in prison. Vanessa stood slowly. You stupid old fool. Do you have any idea what you've done? She pulled out her phone and made a call. Vincent? We have a problem. The old man knows. She listened for a moment, then looked at me with cold eyes. He's coming over. We're going to talk about this. All of us. And you're going to tell me exactly who you've talked to, what evidence you think you have, and how we're going to make this go away. 20 minutes later, Vincent arrived. Then Thomas Harper, Vanessa's father. They all sat around the kitchen table, looking at me like I was an insect they were deciding how to squash. Here's what's going to happen, Thomas said. His voice was calm, reasonable. The voice of a man used to making problems disappear. You're going to forget everything you think you know. You're going to live out the rest of your days in that basement, grateful we even give you a roof over your head. And in exchange, we won't kill you and dump your body somewhere no one will ever find it. You can't threaten me, I said, my voice shaking but determined. I've already told people. If anything happens to me, they'll know. Vincent leaned forward. Who? Who did you tell? That granddaughter of yours? Sophie? He grinned. We know all about her little investigation. We've been watching her for months. One phone call, and she disappears just like Marcus did. You killed someone, I said. You burned a body and claimed it was Marcus. Whose body was it? Thomas waved a hand, dismissively. A homeless man from Vancouver. No one who mattered. No one who'd be missed. You're monsters. We're survivors, Vanessa said. And you're nothing. A confused old man with no proof, no credibility, and no power. So you're going to shut up, go back to your basement, and die quietly. Or we'll make you die loudly. The front door burst open. Police officers flooded the kitchen. Patricia Chen was with them, and behind her, Sophie. "We got it all," Patricia said, holding up a recorder. Every word. Thomas Harper's face went from confident to terrified in seconds. Vincent tried to run, but was tackled by 2 officers. Vanessa just stood there, frozen, watching her world collapse. They arrested all 3 of them, charged them with insurance fraud, conspiracy to commit murder, unlawful confinement, and a dozen other crimes I couldn't keep track of. Sophie and I drove back to Alberta that night. We brought Marcus home. He cried when he saw Tyler again. His son had grown so much in 4 years. Tyler was confused at first, scared of this bearded stranger. But slowly, carefully, Marcus reintroduced himself. Explained in terms a 7-year-old could understand that he'd been on a long, difficult journey, that he'd missed his son every single day, that he was home now, and he'd never leave again. The trial took 8 months. In the end, Thomas Harper was sentenced to 15 years for fraud and conspiracy. Vincent got 12 years. Vanessa, because she'd cooperated and testified against her father, got 8 years. The insurance companies had to pay back Marcus for the policies. The house, the money, everything was returned to him. Vanessa's fancy law firm career was destroyed. Her family's reputation was ruined. Marcus didn't keep the money from the insurance fraud. He donated it to organizations that help victims of financial abuse, said he wanted something good to come from all the evil. Sophie graduated top of her class. She started her own forensic accounting firm, specializing in uncovering insurance fraud. She's brilliant. Marcus is so proud of her. As for me, I moved in with Marcus and Tyler. Not in the basement this time. In the master bedroom upstairs, Marcus insisted. Said I'd spent too many years in the cold and dark. It was time to come into the light. Sometimes, on winter evenings, when the snow falls like frozen tears on the windows, I think about those 4 years, the cold basement, the humiliation, the grief. But then Tyler runs in, asking Grandpa to help with his homework, and Marcus calls from the kitchen asking if I want tea, and Sophie texts to say she'll be over for dinner Sunday. And I realized that the darkness made the light so much brighter, that the years of suffering taught me what really matters. Not money, not pride, not even justice. Family, real family. The people who risk everything to find you. The people who never give up, even when the whole world tells them you're gone. I'm 77 now. I've got maybe a few good years left, but they'll be years spent in warmth, in love, in the light. And that's more than enough.